Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 6:21 p.m. Directors present tonight are Director Kreitler, Director DeVries, and Director Ramirez, which means we have a quorum. Thank you to our interpreter, Astrid. Would you please share the interpretation instructions with our participants, and then we can turn on the interpretation function. The first business in order is the approval of the agenda. Directors, are there any proposed changes to the agenda? Seeing as there are none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Our next agenda item is our celebrations and updates by our superintendent, Dr. Anna Cole.
Good evening. Great. I know we have a skeleton crew tonight, so we have a couple of board directors have had conflicts. Certainly our senior leadership team is similar. I know Chief Platt will be joining us for the policy section. She had to get to a conference tonight, and we'll be zooming in. I know we've got some topics related to finance. Want everybody to know that Chief Chacoin knew she was going to be out these dates long before she was even hired by the district. So I know we've got a skeleton crew, but we have some really important work tonight. So grateful that everyone's here. At least the forum is here. So this week for updates and celebrations, and I would add one more thing that Rodrigo and Jonathan, we've revised some of our text systems. So we're hoping that this works. We have some complex tech tools we're going to try to use tonight. And so a little bit of grace and a lot of gratitude for all the work that went into this week, trying to dial us in a little better. So that's all going on. In addition, this week we are celebrating and recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month. Hispanic Heritage Month is a month-long celebration of Hispanic and Latino history and culture. For tonight's superintendent updates and celebrations, we're going to do something a little different and much longer than my usual district updates. We're going to do that in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. Latino and Hispanic students make up 57% of the student population in the Roaring Fork School District. Latino and Hispanic students are our majority population. And when we consider the many contributions of Latino and Hispanic students, staff, and families, there is much to be grateful for. Latino and Hispanic students, staff, and families create a school district that is multilingual, where the majority of students are bilingual, and support schools to host cultural events and celebrations like Dia de los Niños, Dia de los Muertos, ballet folklorico performances, and student leadership opportunities in groups like Voces Latinos at Basalt High School. Hispanic and Latino students have been high school valedictorians, salutatorians, and have been awarded prestigious scholarships like the Daniels and Bescher scholarships, celebrating excellence in academics, leadership, and community service. Hispanic and Latino students have been important leaders for our district in clubs and activities, members of teams that have competed in state championships, and represented the Roaring Fork schools throughout the region, state, and country. If we were only to celebrate the cultural contributions of Hispanic and Latino students, though, we would also fail to see the areas where we as a district must do more to ensure, in particular, Hispanic and Latino student success. Our historic and our most recent student data shows that Hispanic and Latino students lag behind their white peers in academic achievement and growth. Hispanic and Latino students are also overrepresented in disciplinary incidents, underrepresented in advanced academic coursework, underrepresented in school activities like sports, music, theater, and clubs. We know from our data that Hispanic and Latino students and their families experience more incidents of racism in our schools and communities than do white students. Additionally, a critical component of student success is the opportunity to learn from teachers and staff who reflect your lived experiences. Despite the remarkable diversity we have in our schools and our communities because of Hispanic and Latino students and families, we do not have that same diversity reflected in our teaching and administrative staff. Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month is a wonderful time to acknowledge the cultural and historic contributions of the Hispanic and Latino community in our district, our valley, our state, and our country. But at the same time, if we fail to acknowledge and address the challenges Latino and Hispanic students face in our school district and our community, our celebrations can be distractions from the reality of their lives and experiences. Our district's new 5-year strategic plan has a number of commitments identified as priorities and initiatives that will address some of the challenges Hispanic and Latino students face. We will strengthen high-quality teaching through effective coaching and other supports for teachers. We will align and strengthen instructional practices to support emerging bilingual students. We will ensure school culture and climate is equitable, inclusive, and representative of our students. We will strengthen recruitment and retention practices to support and sustain a talented staff that is reflective of the diversity of our students and community. And we will commit to auditing our operational, budgetary, and policy practices to support equitable outcomes for all students. Additionally, we will continue to partner with Latino students, families, and Latino serving organizations to listen and learn from their experiences in our schools. Importantly, we will follow Latino students and family leaders who push us on policies and best practices. Last year, Hispanic and Latino students and families who participated in the Equity Advisory Council provided critical content for board policies, including our equity, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism, and safe haven policies. We followed their recommendations and pushes, and the board did as well, adopting the proposals as board policy. In addition to cultural celebrations happening across the district, we wanted to take time tonight to hear again and center the voices of Latino and Latino students who participated in that work last year. We want to honor their experiences, recognize their leadership, and continue as a leadership team to listen. So I want to start tonight by sharing a video that student leaders recorded last spring. It's short, it's about 4 minutes. It's available on our website, but I don't know that everyone's gotten a chance to see it. And especially tonight, it felt like something we needed to lift up. Our Director of Student Family Services, Kelly Medina, directed the video, so many thanks to her. And it was edited by our bilingual communication specialist, Christina Vargas. So big thanks to Christina. Rodrigo and Jonathan figured out how we can show it tonight. So we're going to jump over to that. So let's tune in for part 1 of our celebration tonight, and then part 2 involves some special guests.
And other part was working with the different members of EAC was very helpful because all of them really cared, and you could tell it was a group that was truly invested in this.
I would say it was a really interesting. Other people didn't, and it sort of put into perspective, because like this work is so important, because students will feel safe and wanna aspire to feel this. Me gustó poder expresarlo y poder
Second or seven, keep rolling, because we can definitely share this video more broadly, because I know we have some guests waiting.
Process involved a lot of drafting and revising the policies. Another part was working with the different members of each.
That's working?
Okay.
Process involved a lot of drafting and revising the policies. Another part was working with the different members of EAC was very helpful because all of them really cared and you could tell it was a group that was truly invested in this.
I would say that it was a really interesting time for me. None of this matters if we aren't, like, if students aren't feeling safe. I know that I was able to prioritize my learning and my future goals because I felt safe. And so knowing that other people didn't, it sort of put it into perspective because like this work is so important because students will feel safe and wanna aspire to future goals. Me gustó poderles expresar lo que yo creía que estaba bien y o no de la póliza y poder hablar colaborativamente sobre si iba a funcionar o no y poder llegar a una conclusión todos de acuerdo.
Most important part for me was the making immigrant families and students feel more welcome in our schools. I love that because my parents and my friends' parents are immigrant families and I've seen them struggle. And I'm glad that I've made, even if it was a small impact, I'm glad that I made that impact.
The most important part for the safe haven policy, besides the actual policy and the great benefits that it will have, I think is the implementation. I think that is probably one of the most important parts because the policy can only be as good as it is whether implemented or enforced. And I think being able to get everyone on the same page, whether it's students, teachers, staff members, or community members, and telling them about them will really help increase that or make that impact greater.
Para mí, yo creo que lo más importante es que eso de la confidencia que tenemos, como que si arrestan a alguien en cualquier caso, que no sea como algo que se vuelva viral. I think that there were a lot of important components. I think the biggest thing was that I realized that overarchingly, I was a part of a community and a school district that cared about that in the first place and that was willing to prioritize it because you're not gonna be putting like all this devotion and action into doing something this impactful if you don't like truly back it and if that's not really that doesn't align with your values.
In the past, I've seen that some policies create a need for more policies, but I really hope that this policy is concrete and helps our students and families feel more welcome in their school district.
Yo espero que si en algún caso llega a pasar esto, que Dios no quiera, pues que tanto como maestros y estudiantes sepan cómo comportarse y los oficiales en la escuela sepan qué pueden hacer y qué no. Yo creo que eso de sentir la seguridad y la privacidad es muy importante.
Long term, I think Safe Haven will help a lot of newcomer families. I think it will lead to really having an integration of Latino voices.
Ultimately, it has given a lot of people exposure to it, and it's really interesting because more people are becoming conscientious of the fact that it's not only important, but it's something that's there and capable of actually making change.
We're gonna pivot, and we have, we've reached out to some of our student leaders who've moved on, and I can see that Esmeralda has joined us, and so we have a couple of questions. Again, want to center the voices of our students, and it looks like, maybe Eric is online as well. Awesome, so we're so excited to welcome back Esmeralda Valverde Duarte and Eric Vasquez. And so would love for you both, and I wonder if Esmeralda, you can go first, and then Eric, when we get you on, we can hear from you as well. But I guess we have about 3 questions for each of you. And the first is, if you could tell us, first of all, just hello, and what you've been up to since graduation. How has your transition been to college? What's going well and what's difficult?
Hello, can you
Yeah.
guys hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome, thank you. Well, hello everyone. My name is Esmeralda Alverde Duarte. I am currently studying in New York at Cornell University and glad to be back in the space. It's been a while. I have been, since graduation, well, over the summer, I have been on campus ever since essentially we graduated. And I have been working, taking classes over the summer. And yeah, now I've started.
Thanks, Esmeralda. Eric, how about you? What have you been up to? How has your transition been to college? What's going well? What's difficult?
Uh, are you guys able to hear me?
We gotcha.
So, my transition has been very difficult. I don't think I was prepared for the rigor that this school has. But I think that being here this summer has helped accustom me. But it's been very interesting in the sense that I have gotten to explore different, I guess, areas of interest. And I think I'm leaning more towards economics, and maybe I might choose to change my major. I don't know. I like that about college, that we get the opportunity to explore our interests. And yeah.
Thanks, Eric. Well, our next question, we have asked you to come back to the Roaring Fork Schools to join us and celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. Can you share a few words about what Hispanic Heritage Month means to you at this particular point of your life and in your education?
Was the question for me?
Yeah, sure. Eric, why don't you go first this time, then we'll go to Esmeralda.
All right. Being Hispanic is, I guess, it has been very important for me in the sense that the values and the culture that I grew up with are what helped me um, succeed in the process of college applications, and it is helping me now in the sense of my work ethic. And I'm just very proud to be Hispanic, and I hope that I could keep exploring my culture and discover my identity here at college.
Thanks, Eric. Esmeralda, can you share a few words about what Hispanic Heritage Month means to you at this point in your life and education?
I think more than anything, it serves as a reminder of sort of where I've come from. Not only do I come from a Hispanic background, but I also come from a place where my Hispanic background has had to develop in a different way. Being Hispanic in the Roaring Fork Valley is an incredibly interesting thing because there are a lot of people who you can feel connected with in a different way. And so I think Hispanic Heritage Month is just reminding me of of where I've been in that process, and how I can then take the sense of belonging that I felt there into other spaces, such as campus here.
Thanks, Rosemary. Okay, last question. I'm gonna set this one up. Oh. Sorry? Asterisks are interpreted. Okay, so I want to set this one up a little bit. So you saw that we shared the video that you helped make last year after the board adopted the safe haven policy. We shared it tonight during this board meeting as part of our celebration of Latino and Hispanic Heritage Month, because in addition to appreciating the cultural richness that the Hispanic and Latino community contributes to the Roaring Fork Valley, we also wanted to spotlight the challenges Hispanic and Latino students and families face, and what we're doing as a district in partnership and following the lead of Hispanic and Latino students and families to address those challenges. So the question is, from your perspective, what accomplishments should the Roaring Fork schools celebrate in terms of addressing those challenges? And perhaps even more importantly, what are the issues that we still need to address, and what do we need to do better to better honor and support our Hispanic and Latino students? And maybe Esmeralda, will start with you this time and then go to Aaron.
I'd say that the district is doing a lot of really focusing on being cognizant of the situation as it is. And I think that's it's like one of the first steps. Like recognizing that, you said the statistic, how many, like the population that is Hispanic, and the steps that, some of the steps that are needed to be taken to address what comes with that sort of population. I really love that you guys do recognize student leadership. It's how I got involved, and I think that's a really amazing component that I've seen it work incredibly well. Also, you guys talked about the equity, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism policy. I think that the work that the EAC did on that was amazing, and I think continuing to implement things such as those are going to be really beneficial in the future. In terms of things that can help bridge any sort of gaps that there are, I think underrepresentation in advanced courses would be something that I think would be crucial to address, because I recognize the importance that my participation in those courses, I recognize the importance that had on my future education. A lot of what I believe got me here is my ability to strive for more in those courses, but then led me to strive for more in college, for example, and that, and yeah, I think that's valuable.
How about you? What should we be celebrating, and what pushes? What do we need to do better?
I think that we should celebrate, like Esmeralda said, I agree with her, the fact that it's being recognized and that there is a problem, and that there have been efforts to address that given problem. In terms of representation in advanced courses and extracurriculars, I think that to improve that, first we need to look at the family of a Hispanic my bad, to look inside of a family that is Hispanic, because most of the time, being low income, students tend to look for jobs to support their families, and that takes up a lot of their time, depriving them of the high school experience, which would be being involved in extracurriculars or taking on challenging courses like AP courses. And I believe that providing families with more opportunities would really increase that representation. But the safe haven policy was a good step in the right direction because it protects immigrant families, and that itself increases representation.
Really appreciate everything you both are naming, and I'm hearing you lift up student representation, better partnerships with families, additional resources to support families, to support their students, hearing about student leadership, hearing about that representation in extracurriculars and advanced academic coursework, and also hearing from you now and hearing again as I've watched the video again, pushing us to, like, the policies are nice, but only as good as we can implement. And so also hearing that from you both, so thank you. I know it's late in New York, but wondering if we could open the floor really to the board members for a moment before you both sign off, to see if they have any questions or comments.
Thank you. Thank you both to Eric and Esmeralda for your time. Congratulations. We're so proud of you. We're so grateful for the opportunity to have you here today in celebration of this important month that this board and past boards have been so committed to making sure that we not only center students, but that we're working towards a common goal of making sure every student in our schools are successful. On behalf of the board and for myself as a graduate of the district as well, muchas gracias, felicidades. Estamos muy agradecidos por su tiempo, estamos muy orgullosos de ustedes, and we wish you all of the best at this school year, and we hope that you guys are very successful, and we welcome you back anytime. This is your home.
And I'll just add that thank you, the both of you, for being such great role models for others in our district to emulate. You set the bar high and you are great at inspiring others. So thank you for that great work and the best of luck. And I think you've made your own luck, so I think it will be the best of who you are, maybe not the luck. So thank you.
The next, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Buenas
Eric.
noches. Gracias.
Eric and Esmeralda, thank you so much. It's so inspiring to continue to learn from you both. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful night.
And that
Thank
does-
you.
Thanks, Eric. And that concludes our superintendent updates and celebrations.
The next business in order is a health insurance program update presentation from Dr. Cole.
So let's jump in, and I want to make sure this is right. So I have my thoughts kind of organized in terms of providing this update on our health insurance program and some concerns that we have. So I want to make sure that the board is aware of where we are. We're shifting wholeheartedly into finances and employee benefits. So during the late spring of 2024, summer and early fall, the Roaring Fork School District internal operational teams of human resources and finances reviewed our district's first year of implementation of a self-insurance health plan as they were closing the books on this plan. So the findings from that review include that the district underestimated the true cost of the self-insurance plan, both in terms of capacity to administer the funding needed the funding required to implement the plan without significant financial risk. So in order to address this, the district needs now to consider a mid-year pivot back to a managed insurance plan in order to mitigate risk and potential financial losses. Any option at this point, whether we pivot to a managed plan or stay with our current self-insurance plan, will require additional funding above and beyond what we budgeted for in 24-25. And most likely above and beyond what we have in available unallocated fund balance reserves, above the minimum fund balance required by the district's policy. So the team is projecting right now that losses this year could be anywhere from $4 to $6 million. So the purpose of this superintendent report today is to, with a great deal of gravity, to provide the Board of Education and our community with an overview of how we got here, where we are right now, what our decision-making process is before we come to you for action, what our options are, and then our next steps. So I'm going to go back a little bit in history. Before the fall of 2023, so before last school year, our employee health insurance for, we staff about 800 full-time employees, about 1,000 if you include part-time employees as well. Our employee health insurance was delivered by a managed care plan through the nonprofit trust CEBT. This meant that we had limited options of how benefits were structured and how we could minimize costs. Annually, what we experienced was that CEBT increased costs, sometimes significantly, without much district control. But it also meant that the price tag of that healthcare fully eliminated any financial risk to the district. In anticipating ongoing increases to CEBT plan costs, the district, over 2 years ago, established a health insurance advisory committee to explore alternative options. This committee worked for over 2 years and ended with a recommendation that the Roaring Fork Schools switch to a self-insured health plan that was brokered by an organization called Think Health. This plan had the potential to minimize overall cost, but required that we carefully manage options and that we also purchase stop-loss insurance as part of our plan to minimize but not fully eliminate financial risk. This past spring and summer, as our teams began to close the books or reconcile payments for our first year of self-insurance, our team, Catherine Proctor, with help from former CFO Shannon Pelland, began to identify concerning trends regarding very high expenses related to our medical services and the care that we were receiving. Additionally, as our new Chief Financial Officer, Christy Chicoine, took office in mid-August, she and I began to try to make sense of existing contracts. And we spent a lot of time reviewing how our self-insurance plan was set up for 24-25. And what we uncovered was concerning. And the headlines here are that I think what Catherine, Shannon, Christy, and I, and additional team members have identified is that first, we underestimated what was needed in regards to the plan management and plan administration. The rollout of the plan a year ago in the summer of 2023 was not smooth for employees, nor were the first few months of last school year. It was very difficult for team members to shift to new plans of care and understand what was covered, what wasn't, what providers they had, and really make that transition. We also underestimated the true cost, and we did not integrate future risk with the way we calculated premiums for this school year. So where we're at right now is that we believe that if we don't do something immediately, we estimate that losses could far exceed what was budgeted and what currently exists in our unallocated general fund balance. And very frustratingly, this is subject to change, to increase or decrease based on really the medical services and claims we utilize by our staff right now. So it's really difficult to pin down precise numbers of where we're at and we're estimating a lot of potential risk. And what's also very difficult about this moment is we're coming and starting a process to examine a potential alternate option, but even that will require significant mid-year investment from Roaring Fork School District beyond what we've budgeted and most likely beyond what we have available in unallocated reserves. I want to let you know that we are not doing this on our own. So Christy Chicoine, our new CFO, has worked diligently to provide us an alternate pathway, and we believe that we have an option to minimize our risk and lessen to some degree the amount of money that we need to invest this year. And that option is to move back to a managed care plan through CEBT effective January 1st, 2025. To craft a plan going forward to make sure that we are understanding the parameters, the concerns, the risks, and make sure that no stone has been left unturned. We have retained a pretty strong team to support us in our decision-making and analysis. It includes our Roaring Fork School District General Counsel. It includes a team of lawyers who are specialists in employee benefits, especially in the public sector. It also includes consultation with an actuarial consultant who's going to help us try to pin down our numbers of usage. We are also working closely and communicating closely with McMahon and Associates, who you all know as our district auditors, that do our financial auditing, and we're leaning on some of our supporters, including Shannon Helland, who's a former Roaring Fork School District CFO, to work through this. We have also, as we've become more aware of this concern, explored other managed care providers beyond CEDT, but thus far, none have been able to provide a plan that could launch as soon as January 1st with comparable costs. So we want to present you with the projected cost of these options and explain the broad decision-making process that we've launched in partnership with Roaring Fork School District employees. This process, the decision-making process, will take place in two phases. So I think this is really important for our board to understand of how we're going to analyze where we are and make timely decisions. So last week on Thursday, September 19th, we launched a broad decision-making process through our representative leadership structures. So we're really leaning here on the certified, classified, and administrative interest-based bargaining teams. To make sure that we're representing employee voice, we're leaning on those leaders and those representative processes. So phase one will explore if the district should continue this school year with our self-insurance plan, or if we should pivot mid-year back to a managed care provider. Phase two will explore options to cover costs for 24-25 and beyond. As I've mentioned, either option is going to cost more than what we budgeted for this school year. The phase one decision-making process is going to include a bunch of steps, including last week we shared a video with staff that went through this slide deck. We are hosting Q&A sessions. We refined some of these processes today with certified IBB, but we'll be offering question and answer sessions with Chief Chicoine and I. We've shared out a staff Google form to collect feedback from staff, their concerns and questions. We're working with all those representative leadership teams to better understand all those questions. And I would say, when the video was shared with staff about a week ago, we've received, I think last time I checked, about 65 incredibly thoughtful, helpful responses to the Google form. Yesterday and today, as we launched certified and classified IBB, we've discussed this issue and the decision-making process with interest-based bargaining leaders. This decision to stay or to pivot mid-year is, we are targeting the October 23rd board meeting as the deadline where administration will come before the board and make a recommendation to the Board of Education regarding our 24-25 health insurance plan and a potential mid-year pivot. So the timeline for this decision-making process is between now and October 23rd. And the reason that's the timeline, and it is fast, is because the option to pivot mid-year that will disappear if we wait longer, because if we decide to pivot on October 23rd, essentially the first week of November, we have to move into open enrollment in order to have everything ready by January 1st. So that is why the timeline is what it is. If we waited, we don't actually have a decision to make. We lose the option. So that's phase one of decision making. Phase two is really going to look at how we pay for this either option. So to move into phase two, we're going to reconvene our health insurance advisory committee. It will include leadership from certified, classified, and admin IBB, and the team will explore and prioritize and recommend options for how we address the increased cost of employee benefits for the school year and beyond. Director Kuhlenberg has committed to joining this advisory committee, so the board will be represented on that team as well. And the kinds of things that we're hoping to do with phase two is bring forward options of how we can pay for these increased costs and have the team prioritize those areas. Again, we haven't budgeted for these expenses, and we're going to have to figure out where that money is coming from. So considerations might include utilizing our available fund balance and reserves, which would mean additional deficit spending for the 24-25 school year. It could explore things like increasing some of the plan details like copays or deductibles. And it could also include things like postponing or reducing or eliminating district initiatives or projects in order to reallocate funding to cover the cost. Increasing our employee health insurance premiums is one way that we could address the deficit. But we will recommend that all increased costs for the 24-25 school year come from the district and not from our employees. The Health Insurance Advisory Council will work the timeline for phase 2 is October, November to recommend options for addressing the deficit. We will bring those recommendations to the Board of Education for approval. Again, because these expenses were not covered in our 24-25 budget, we will discuss where they will come from, what our priorities are, and then we bring that forward in an amended budget. This next slide shows our current best estimated comparisons of the increases in premiums that are required to address the financial risk, either by appropriately funding our current plan or by switching to CEBT mid-year. Again, I want to really underscore that we are committed to doing everything possible to ensure that the district covers the increased cost for 24-25, not employees. And so I want you to see this as a comparison of what we believe the costs are, but to remember that the way we hit the total premium cost is a combination of employee funding and district funding, that this is not all on the employee to cover. So this shows a comparison of the current cost of premiums, the projected cost of the self-insured Think Health plan if we were to appropriately fund that plan, and then the cost of a comparable CEBT plan for January to June. It's really difficult to truly assess the cost for Think Health because we don't know the costs of our medical care from August to December. And we still have to include in the August to December the claims that we've received this summer that we're receiving now, like medical bills we're receiving now for services that happened last school year. So it's tricky. But these are our best estimates of what we need to increase premiums by in order to offset financial risk to the district. These numbers have been reviewed by our legal teams, by our actuarial consultants, so that they were, to make sure that they were reasonable comparisons, so that we could bring those forward for consideration. And I'll name that right now, because of this comparison, administration believes that it would be in the best interest of the school district to pivot to CEBT mid-year. It would eliminate the uncertainty of the Think Health plan and set us up for a more stable and predictable plan moving forward. I want to really make it clear that this is our best thinking right now, but this decision-making process over the next couple of weeks is critical, and we have to take the time to hear more from employees and from the Board of Education. I want to really highlight the fact that this past year for health insurance and the transition to self-insurance has not been easy for our staff. Our staff members have had to navigate a new system, new providers, and new coverage. We do know that it has worked really well for some of our employees, and it's been incredibly difficult for others. We also know, and I know I'm speaking very high level and about numbers and systems, but truly the health and well-being of our employees and their families is most likely the most important priority in their lives. This is incredibly personal for the 800 full-time staff members who are eligible for health insurance. This hits right at the core of most of our employees and families' values. This is a critical component of employee well-being, and we've got to get this right. So next steps. I'm not able to forward this. I wonder, Jonathan, if you can get us to the next slide. Sorry. The clicker's not working. So next steps, thanks, perfect. We've detailed a number of next steps to move forward phase 1 decision-making. Again, for the Board of Education, this will culminate in a formal recommendation to you all at the October 23rd meeting. An important component of this process is communication with the public. We have a responsibility to ensure transparency around the fiscal well-being of our organization with our community and the taxpayers. The public discussion, starting that process, is happening tonight. This is it. And we will continue to update the board and the community throughout the fall during our Board of Education meetings. In addition to launching the district decision-making process, we're still working to understand the financial impacts of the 23-24 school year and health plan. We're still trying to get clarity on our 24-25 contracts, and we're still trying to accurately project the true costs of plans that again are dependent entirely on employee usage, a factor that's incredibly difficult to project. This decision-making process requires us to sit with uncertainty, and that is really hard. It is important, though, that we bring this issue to employees, to the Board of Education, and the public right now, even though there is still gray area in order to work transparently and collaboratively towards a timely solution. And I want to just situate this a little higher. In our 24 through 29 strategic plan, we have 5 key priorities: students first, rigorous instruction for all, operational excellence, student-centered partnerships, and thriving team. This work and this issue has underscored the need for us to strengthen operational excellence. And it underscores a crucial component that must be in place for a thriving team. This is a challenge that's hitting us right at our key priorities, and I want to reassure the board and our staff and our community that it is receiving, and it will continue to receive our utmost attention and focus. I want to state again that the health and well-being of employees is one of our highest priorities. The goal of providing health insurance is to ensure that all employees have access to quality, accessible, and affordable health care. If our staff are happy and healthy, then the learning environments that teams create are better for student achievement and well-being, which is our ultimate goal as a district. This is a lot of information, and we're incredibly grateful for the employees and leaders and IBB reps who have taken an incredible amount of time in just the last couple days to listen, to learn, to ask questions, and to lean in with pushes and recommendations this past week and even up into this afternoon. When we made the decision to move forward with phase 1, I spoke with IBB leaders from every team, and without any pause, every single one of them engaged wholeheartedly with the issue and didn't hesitate when asked to represent their teams in this process. And I'm incredibly grateful for their leadership and their collaboration during a really difficult moment. This is really difficult work. This is tough news. I think we're all still trying to wrap our brains around it and make sure everybody understands the gravity of the situation. And I'm incredibly frustrated that it is taking our focus in part away from supporting our incredible students, their well-being and their learning and their growth. But we know that employee well-being is a critical component of student success and that we have to get that right in order to move forward. We are deeply committed to finding a way through this quickly, transparently, and in collaboration with Roaring Fork School District employees and the Board of Education. I am confident, especially after conversations the last couple of days with certified and classified IBB, with board members, that we can find a way through this, that we can identify reasonable and rational solutions to move us forward, keeping employee well-being at the center and organizational financial stability and integrity in place. We owe it to our students, our staff, and our community to get this right. Don't have to repeat your questions. That was a lot.
Each board member will now have 2 minutes to share comments or ask questions. We will begin with Director Graves.
First of all, Dr. Cole, I wanted to just applaud the thoroughness of the plan that you've taken time to get in place already. And also that just the honesty and ownership and forward-thinking framing of this, not looking behind us, looking forward. I appreciate that a lot. It's like that quote with where if you get on the wrong train, take the first stop, because otherwise the return trip gets more and more expensive. So for as much as we are on the wrong train right now, we are obviously planning to get off at the first stop, and I appreciate that. I was wondering if you could just summarize a little bit more. I know that you rolled this out in a full day conversation with IBB today. Could you just share with me some of the responses that you were getting from teachers and what that looked like and maybe what you learned from what you heard today?
Sure. You know, I would say today and yesterday were classified, and I would also defer to Director Tyler, who's also in the room all day today, for additional information. I think there's a couple themes that we're hearing right now from staff, and these were echoed in certified BB and classified yesterday. I think first and foremost, there are concerns about what happened, how do we get here, and how do we make sure this doesn't happen again. So I think in a lot of ways, it has undermined trust in our operational systems and teams, and we hear that theme in the feedback. I think another theme that we're hearing is, kind of around the process and wanting clarity, and people really want access to information and details and to be able to compare and have accurate information to really analyze the options in front of us. And so receiving really helpful feedback in the Google Forms and conversations of how folks would like to see information shared, what kinds of comparable information would be helpful, You know, because we're also hearing about different details that matter to folks in terms of the priorities that occur. I would say another theme of what we hear is, and you heard it echoed in the information I shared, is that folks really feel it incredibly unfair if employees' salaries or contributions to premiums take a hit this year because of this. And so that has shown up a lot too, is that, you know, we're happy to work on this, but like, it should not be on the backs of 24, 25 salaries. I think there's also a question that we heard today of like, and what's the implication for 25, 26? And what are we looking at there? And heard from employees that they wanted more information about what we could project into 25, 26. So that was really helpful. I'm trying to remember, I already had 4 kind of key themes. And I guess the last, I think, is just really the personal nature of this and the stress that this causes for some of our staff. And I think there's a lot of worry about both the personal concerns. What does this mean for my paycheck? And I think when folks can step away from that, then there is a whole nother kind of tidal wave of concerns of what does this mean for the district and the financial stability of the district if we're looking at these kind of potential losses that we didn't budget for, that we don't have in unallocated reserves. And so I think that's the other theme is what is the financial impact to the district as a whole? So those are kind of what I would say right now, the kind of organization of the themes. And then certainly today with certified IBB, we got into some more tactical work about their pushes and recommendations, even on how we've structured phase 1 of wanting more information, some more kind of mandatory, hey, every school employee needs to zoom in on a 10-minute overview to really understand the gravity of this. So we were refining some of the phase 1 information sharing processes today that staff will hear more about on Friday, just in terms of a cadence of meetings and information. I don't know if there's anything I missed, Director.
Maybe the only other thing I would add is there was some concern from staff at IDB about what would be the long-term fallout from such a thing, from this problem that we're confronting at this point with our health insurance, and what does that look like in the future as far as retention, raises, and trust. And trust was a definite thing that was brought up today in IDB of how can we trust us as a district moving forward, because they have lost trust in our financial system as a district.
I had another question as well. You mentioned, I think it just centers around how do we avoid this in the future, and you ran through that a little bit and listed those third-party contractors, legal team, actuarial consultants, and then some expert help from within our community. What of those was in place when this was decided?
You know, I would say we've always had general counsel. We were not using general counsel to review contracts related to our health insurance. I would say we also were not enlisting the support of our auditors at that time. And so I would say, to be honest, looking back at last year, we weren't using any of those experts. We are absolutely using them now. And, you know, making sure that we're taking the right steps, that we're communicating the right information, but those weren't in place.
And then just really quick too, you mentioned this, that we'll receive regular updates before the action item on the 23rd. I just wanted to reinforce how important that is to us as a board, and you can keep us in the loop with every step and not just make it the 23rd next time we hear about it. And then also just my own perspective, strongly supporting funding this in any way this year that does not impact future income, salary, benefits, and preparing to look at difficult options around that, but falling heavily on not putting this on the backs of teachers.
I would also add that I checked in with Director Kuhlenberg earlier today on this, and we were discussing the need for, at least the foreseeable future, having a standing board agenda item that is an update from Chief Chacoin on finances. And I think some of this came from conversations we had in Finance Committee Monday of needing to make sure that the board is closer to the work starting at our next meeting. So you will have more, and Director Bloomberg is really supportive of that. So you will hear some regular updates from Chief Chacoin until we feel like we got enough. And that might last quite a long time, so.
Thank you.
Director Titan.
Thank you for all your time today, Dr. Cole with the IDB. I have a couple questions I would like to ask, not so much questions, but things to see if they could be presented to both the board and maybe for this IDB session that is coming up that I think would be helpful for people to have this information. The first one would be if we look at from what you presented, what the cost is of the current premium to the CEBT comparable plan. If you could, for those employee only, employee plus spouse, employee plus children, employee plus family, if we're talking 800 people that were insured, can you say how many of the 800 fit in each of those categories? Would be very helpful for us to see what that increased cost would be in that sense. Then with that cost being calculated, I would also want, from the conversation that we had about this stopgap insurance, if we change to CBT in January, if we get a cost figure on what we think that stopgap insurance would be if we were to change in January. And I can send these to you in the email if you want.
I know.
Another one would be, you talked about this, the run-on cost for after the year ends. I would be interested to know, and I think we've talked about this, if there would be a run-on cost if we stay through June 30th with Think Health. And if that could be clarified, whether or not there would be a run-on cost there, because that would help us with trying to decide which is the best plan also. And then additionally, the part about that budget that you're going to rework that will show what was the projected budget, what is the actual budget, what is where we think we're going to be, if that can be all annotated out. And then the last one would be also annotate how much would insurance would have cost us for 2 years if we would have stayed with CEBT versus what we did end up budgeting for or where we are. So if we could say this is the total cost that we're projecting after 2 years of being with Think Health, like this will be where we think 2 years will be total budget. What would that total budget have been if we had stayed with CEBT for those 2 years? Because I think when we're looking at these losses, which seem super high, I think it's inflated if we compare it to what would have happened if we had stayed with CEBT versus what we actually budgeted for Think Health. And so I think while it's astronomical at this point, I think it can be lessen the thought of what that would have been if we had just been with CEBT.
Thank you, Superintendent Cole. We had this conversation on Monday, so, I think that our push then was really to make sure that we're clear with the solutions that we need to look at this point in time. I will say that I think the 4 to 6 million, I think it would be helpful to know what we've, to Director Hitler's question, what is the amount that we, as of today, know that we are already past? I think that it would be great to know, like, if we are, what is the deadline for us to know the number for the summer? How soon can we have that information? I think that would be helpful for decisions. And I also think that it would be helpful in your upcoming presentation to talk about what we budgeted for and what that looks like for us now. I did have one question. You mentioned that you received about 65 responses, and I was wondering, what is the number of responses that you're expecting to have prior to our decision making?
That's a great question. I don't know if we have a set number. It's hard because I think there are a large number of employees who are kind of disengaged from the issue, and that came up today with interest-based bargaining, the certified team, and a push from that team saying you need to get closer in front of them instead of an email with an optional click into a video. And so, that what I heard from certified IBB and what we're planning to do is push in a video that says, we really need you to look at this. Like, this is going to have far-reaching implications. to the way our district financials work and the way we think about, the funding we have available to do all sorts of things. And so next week we have a district, early release Wednesday. And so what we've agreed to do, based on the recommendations from Certified IBB, is that Chief DeCoin and I will push in with an all-staff kind of 10-minute explaining kind of a very high level, here's the overview. We really need you to engage. Look at the slide deck. Look at we now have an employee webpage with all this information with a live frequently asked questions document to really nudge people to say, we really need you to lean in here. So I would love to see the Google form responses increase after that, after we really say like, hey, we really need you to lean in. This is a big deal and we don't want there to be a change later. And this was really helpful to hear today. Folks worried that the changes that are coming, if we do decide to pivot, we want people to have been brought along with the decision making and not be caught off guard. And so, I don't know if there's a total number. We don't have a target, a percentage of what we'd like to hear. And I think at the end of the day, the hope is that folks understand and are aware of the issue, understand the implications as much as can be articulated, that they have their questions answered and that they know where to go to share concerns and questions. And that could be the Google form. It could be talking to your IBB rep, whether that's your classified, certified, or admin IBB rep. It could be sending an email to me. It could be showing up at an online FAQ session or Q&A session with Chief DeCoin and I. So I don't know that we have a target number on what responses would be right, because there's a lot of ways people can engage. And so, and I also think it's fair that some employees are like, y'all make the decision. I trust that the employees are represented through IBB. And they, whether or not people want to lean in here, I just want to make sure they at least understand the headlines. So I don't know that we have a targeted number, but I will name that of the responses that we've received so far, they are incredibly thoughtful, incredibly targeted. They really demonstrate a staff that is leaning in and has really helpful pushes and needs clarity on specific things. And so I've been really grateful for those so far.
How many staff members are we representing them?
There are about 800 full-time staff members that are represented, and the way we're doing this is through their IBB representatives.
And then just piggyback on that, and one other thing that happened today was that with this meeting that's on Wednesday, that's going to be given out to all staff. Prior to that, we're going to reconvene IDB on Tuesday. And at that reconvening, before that happens, Dr. Cole is going to be sending out an all staff email on Friday that's going to mention, please talk to your IDB rep so that they can bring information and questions you have to the IDB session that we have on Tuesday that will then inform the Wednesday feedback to the staff.
So I'm not part of IBB, so I, defer to you guys on those conversations. I will still ask and push you guys to make sure that if there is conversation happening, so I think that's a great strategy, sending out an email on Friday, making sure that everyone is aware, but I think our IBB reps can refer people to the forum. And I also think that it's important for us to be able to show proof that we have engaged with community and with staff, that this is something that we are all clear as a board that it's really important and pivotal that people are aware and is right in front of them. And so if we are able to get a number, I would appreciate it. I think it would make me as a board member feel that we've been thorough to have some sort of expectation on outreach to staff and also have engaged with community enough. But I do think that it's something that we should consider of, for accountability for ourselves. I think that is how you build trust, and I think it's important for us to be able to show proof that we've made a clear commitment to engage and to get feedback from our staff.
Thank you. I appreciate that push, and what I really want to be able to bring on October 23rd is is clarity for the board on where our employees stand. And I'm so grateful for this district's push on making sure that we had this year functional running classified certified admin IBB teams, because this is exactly the kind of moment where we need And we need representative leadership. And so the goal is that on the 23rd, even if it's not all aligned with the recommendation that we bring to the board, I think it's really important that we all understand how employees are feeling about this, whether it is we're all aligned or we're not, and here's why. I think that is critical information for us all to have before we make this decision.
Directors, we will now have 5 minutes for open discussion. I did want to just mention one more thing that, our board meetings are obviously open to the public. We want to invite speakers at all times to be able to come before us to speak and share their thoughts and concerns. I think it's incredibly important for us to make sure that we're getting those dates. And, like you mentioned already, I think it's important for us as the board to be kept in the loop in that. If some of us are able to attend, I think we should. But I do think it'd be great for there to be like some mass email, maybe the one that you sent out on Friday, to include all of those dates, to include board meetings, to include response comment form for the board. As much as we're able to communicate how you can connect with us, how you can connect with the superintendent and the team, your IBD rep, maybe even putting their information on there, their email. I think all of that is really important for us to try to do. Any of my colleagues have any questions or comments?
I really appreciate Director Ramirez that nudge, and I will say full disclosure, in the first email that went out, I did list every board meeting and said this is another avenue to share information in public comment. So I did share the 25th. I think it's the 11th, it's not the 11th, it's the 9th and the 23rd as moments that we would really like our staff, if they would like to have this time to join public comment. But I will continue to share that as another forum.
Thank you so much. Nine, we welcome members of the public who have signed up to address the board. There's one speaker signed up tonight. The board allows 45 minutes for public comment. To respect the time of all who are present speakers, are to limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Reminder to all speakers to uphold our procedures for public comment. We ask you to be thoughtful and constructive with your comments, and thank you in advance for sharing your feedback. Members of the public who wish to share their views with the board may also do so in writing at any time for this evening's public comment. We have.
There was 0 comments written.
Oh, sorry. We received 0 written comments and there's 1 speaker. Copy? Gonzalez.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm really happy to get to come up here again and to speak with you all. My name is Katia Gonzalez, and I'm a proud alumni from the Roaring Fork School District and a parent organizer for Voces Unidas. In my position with Voces Unidas, I'm able to connect with parents and students who are part or have been a part of the Roaring Fork School District. Through these interactions, our goal is to empower individuals to be well informed about the school systems they are a part of and use their power to ensure that their students are successful in school. We are part of a community where 60% of the Roaring Fork School District is composed of Latino students. Yet on average, Latino students are 2 grade levels behind in important subjects such as math, English, writing. Recently in September, the preliminary performance frameworks for the district was released. Our district dropped in ratings from being categorized as a federated institution to now being considered a district under priority improvement. 5 out of 14 schools in our district are now labeled as schools under priority improvement. That is a 14% decrease from the previous year. If we look at the CMAS 2024 results, we see that when it comes to math, only 10.7 of Latino students in the grades 3rd to 8th grade met or exceeded expectations. That means that 89.3% of students are not up to grade level in math. If we look at English and writing, only 15.7 of Latino students can read and write at grade level. 84.3% of Latino students cannot read or write at grade level. This, as I'm sure you all agree, is completely unacceptable. In science, we see that only 26.9% of all fifth graders and 24.7% of all eighth graders are up to academia standards. As a school district, how can we move forward if this is our reality? Voces Unidas de las Montañas and parent leaders demand that the district, including the superintendent and members of the board, create and implement plans that will address three key areas that are impacting Latino students the most. We demand a plan that will eliminate the academic gap in the Roaring Fork School District. We demand a plan that will transform and increase Latino parent engagement. And we demand a plan that aims at recruiting, hiring, and retaining teachers and administrators that reflect the student population. These demands are necessary to ensure that all students, including Latino students, are provided with a high-quality, equitable education in the district. Each of these plans need to lay out the necessary timeline, goal metrics, resource allocation, and community feedback to be successful. As our schools are failing our students and preparing them for life after K through 12 schooling, it is time for change. Thank you for your time.
Pull a fast one on everyone tonight, and I apologize. Thank you, Kenny.
I would like to make a motion, if we could please, before we get to the consent agenda, move the resolution for, the resolution for honoring Hispanic or Latinx Heritage Month to be moved up prior to the consent agenda.
I make a motion to move the resolution honoring, I second it. Great, thank you, that's what I'm seconding.
We have to make a vote, have a vote.
Yes. Director Titlein,
Aye.
Director Ramirez,
Aye.
Director DeFreitas.
Las voy a molestar que por favor se queden por eso, ¿ok? Porque nos movimos para arriba para que ustedes estén presentes. Thank you. Okay.
Did you want to read that?
Yeah. So the next business in order is action on the Board of Education resolution honoring Hispanic or Latinx Heritage Month. Do I have a motion to approve the Board of Education resolution honoring Hispanic or Latinx Heritage Month?
I move that the board approve the Board of Education resolution honoring Hispanic or Latinx Heritage Month as presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
We'll now have 2 minutes discussion for each board member. Sorry. We will begin with Director King.
I would just like to say I'm happy that as a district, we are taking the time to celebrate and honor Hispanic and Latinx Heritage Month. I appreciate the efforts that have been being made in schools through announcements, through some kind of activity in the morning to show that we are honoring our majority minority population that we have in our schools, and that it is important that we look at what the Latinx community brings to our schools and how it is an asset to our schools. And so I think it's very important that we are honoring and making this resolution.
Thank you.
I just wanted to express appreciation for the student leaders who took time to allow us to center their voices in this conversation, and the time that our district has been taking to better understand the work that is laid out in front of us, and the enthusiasm with which leadership has addressed those challenges.
And I, in honor of the celebration, my heritage and our guests, I'm going to speak in Spanish. Gracias primero que nada por quedarse, porque es súper importante para nosotros poder celebrar esta resolución que nosotros estamos haciendo hoy. Es celebrando la herencia de nosotros, de nuestra cultura, y también está dando la directiva al superintendente en crear un plan comprensivo para que todas las escuelas dentro del distrito escolar celebren el mes de la herencia latina hispana. Muchas gracias por quedarse, porque usualmente no tenemos una audiencia para poder celebrar algo, un logro así que hace 5 años uno no pensó que era posible en este distrito escolar. Y aprecio mucho la oportunidad de poder ser una de las directoras con esta mesa directiva que ha centrado las voces de los estudiantes y también se ha enfocado en los logros de todos los niños en nuestro distrito escolar. So I'm going to say it in English for everyone else, but I was just saying thank you to our families who are here tonight, our wonderful alumni who are here tonight, and our current high school students, because it's incredibly important to be able to celebrate and to honor not only our culture and our heritage, but also to have a resolution that calls for implementation of a comprehensive plan in every district school to celebrate this month and to be able to be seen and feel belonging in our schools, and how it's just incredibly important for us to, and for me especially, to have this be a success of this board and to be part of this board. When 5 years ago, it didn't seem like this was ever a possibility, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with both this board and task boards as we have worked towards creating resolutions and proclamations, and really working towards making sure that every student feels seen, feels valued, feels like they belong. So, muchas gracias. Is that okay if I read it? Or
Yeah.
do we have to vote first?
No.
Oh, do you want me to do 5 minutes for discussion?
I think you have to go first. Then we
Okay.
Director Ramirez. Director DeFreitas.
Aye.
Director Hitler.
See,
I just noticed that we do need to translate it on.
It's the second page.
It does not, I don't think it includes everything. Does it? Oh, maybe it does, okay. Okay, I'm gonna read it in Spanish. Considerando que cada año Estados Unidos celebra el Mes Nacional de la Herencia Hispana, que comienza el 15 de septiembre y dura hasta el 15 de octubre, celebramos la cultura, la herencia y las innumerables contribuciones de la comunidad hispana o latina a nuestro país. Y por cuanto reconocemos que dadas las dificultades y disparidades que enfrenta la comunidad hispana o latina, esta resolución es solo un pequeño paso de muchos que debemos dar para ser verdaderamente inclusivos y solidarios con nuestros estudiantes hispanos o latinos y sus familias. Y considerando que el 56% de los estudiantes matriculados en el distrito escolar de Roaring Fork son hispanos o latinos y el español es el segundo idioma materno más hablado en el distrito, y por cuanto creemos que nuestra diversidad es una fortaleza donde las diversas etnias y culturas de nuestros estudiantes crean ricas experiencias educativas y culturales para toda la comunidad escolar. Y por cuanto seguimos comprometidos a servir, inspirar y promover el éxito de los estudiantes mientras mejoramos la equidad estudiantil y el acceso a una educación de alta calidad. Y ahora, por lo tanto, se resuelve que la Junta Directiva de la Escuela Roaring Fork, por lo presente, proclama del 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre como el mes de la herencia hispana o latina, el reconocimiento y celebración de las muchas contribuciones de la comunidad hispano-latina a nuestro país. Se resuelve además que la Junta Directiva Escolar de Roaring Fork apoye las prioridades estratégicas actuales relacionadas con la equidad del distrito para abordar las diferencias en el rendimiento, lanzar herramientas y desarrollo profesional de equidad para el personal, lanzamiento del plan de comunicación bilingüe, crear trayectorias profesionales adicionales, desarrollar un fondo de oportunidades educativas para empleados con salarios más bajos y desatendidos, y fortalecer el Consejo Asesor de Equidad. Se resuelve además que la Junta Directiva de la Escuela Roaring Fork alienta encarecidamente al personal y a la comunidad observar, reconocer y celebrar la cultura, la herencia y las contribuciones de la comunidad hispana y latina a nuestro país, nuestro estado, nuestras ciudades y nuestras escuelas. Gracias. Sí, gracias por quedarme. Ya estoy. Thank you. Okay, we're going back. Okay, that's it. The next business in order is approval of the consent agenda, which includes routine personnel, minutes from our 9/11 board meeting, and policies AEA, KDE, GBA, JRA, JRC, regulations ACR1, ACR2, and ACR3, and repeal of current regulations ACR1. Directors, are there any items that you would like to pull off the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Call to vote.
Director DeFreitas.
Aye.
Director Titler.
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
The next business in order is discussion on first read policies, GBGF, GBGG, GBI, GBJ, GCE, GCF, GCO, and GDE/GDF, and second read policy ACA. Each board member will have 2 minutes to share comments or ask questions. And we will begin with Director DeFreitas.
I see again quite a few here that are following strong recommendations from state partners. And I just wanted to focus for a second on GBGG and note that I was going to actually ask how you all felt on policy committee and admin staff since the CDC collective bargaining contract is newer, right? This is sort of one of the first policies that comes up against it with what's in and what's out and who's in and who's out. And I was just interested in getting feedback from you on how you feel that went and whether further communication or input is necessary from any stakeholder groups.
Great question. I would say we think that this policy will probably come up in classify IBB and potentially admin IBB and how it relates to those employee groups. What's really important about this policy, and I think is really those first 2 sentences that changes, right? That this board policy is now really only applies to non-certified staff because it is baked into the contract. And so what we were striving to do here was make that clear in that first line, and then also align the policy changes that the board approved when this moved into the contract for all staff. And that really has to do with that second comment you can see about after employee is used 6 days. I anticipate, classified IBB and admin IBB are still identifying their interests for the year and what they want to work on. So this could come up again. It certainly came up in certified IBB as a hey, I don't know that we hit it quite right. We nailed it in the contract. And we did not have time, I think, to finalize whether certified IBB today would continue to grapple with it. I think we weren't really, there's a side of us that's definitely hey, it's in the contract, we're not touching that for 3 years. And then there's also always the opportunity to say, all of us think that we need to work on this and can do that. And so I think that's, to your question, the jury's still out. I think it could come back up for discussion through IBB with any of our employee groups this year.
And remind me of the sort of workflow of bringing those options up. There's a sequence of you bring it to us to check. And remind me where we landed on that.
Yeah, so I think what would happen is in order based on the collaborative bargaining agreement with certified, so let's just think about certified. What would need to happen is that the entire IBB team would need to agree that we are going to go back into a contractual clause and revise it. And so that would include the board members who are on IBB, you know, agreeing, consenting to that with admin, with staff. All agreeing that we're gonna work on this. And if so, then we would have a committee that works on alignment of language. And then if we all reached a solution that we felt was better than what's in the contract, we would bring forward to the board an MOU to approve that would then be attached to the contract. So that's how we adjust for mid-year changes. Now, if classified or admin IBB decide to tackle this and say, hey, we want to work on the PTO policy for our employee groups, then they would work through the classified or admin IBB process and come out with agreements that would also come before the board to alter this policy. So you would see it again. If this, you know, if any staff group with admin would like to make a change to this, it will come back to you in the form of an outcome from classified or admin IBB or an outcome from certified IBB in the form of an MOU to the contract. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
So the only kind of additions we're seeing right now are just clarifying that process and the role that it plays for those different employee groups.
You got it. And there, you know, there was part of the reason this came up, yep, is that clarification of who this applies to. And also there was a push from, you know, when CASB did a review. Ours is very different than what state statute says in terms of what is required from employee time off. And we wanted to include CASB's recommendation for you to see that what we have developed and has been created over many years of interest-based bargaining is more generous than what is required by state statute. And so we actually, in the end, decided not to substantially change anything in alignment with the CASB recommendation because it's not as generous towards employees. And yet we still meet all the state statute requirements.
Director Caitlin.
I also don't have too many comments on these policies, as it was very much statute from CASB, but one thing I did want to bring up was on GBGF, the federally mandated family and medical leave. I just want to say that I appreciate that the district has decided to not go with the CASB suggestion there on family leave being only one of the two members of a family who has, who are a family member and a spouse who are both employed, that they would only get 1 12-week. And I appreciate that we've gone to say that both of them qualify for 12 weeks. I think that's important to show that we support and care for our family leave. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. We did have just some follow-up on ACA. It looks like there's a note on there about our toolkit for supporting gender expansive and non-conforming students. I don't see it listed on the bottom or as something that I think, you know, I think if we have it and it relates to it, there should be something in there.
Which policy?
ACA. That's the second grade.
You know, it's typically like an internal protocol in school. I don't know that we've referenced that in policy. And we absolutely could.
I mean, I think if it exists and it's something that we are saying that we have procedures, it might be worth it. I think it'll keep it up to date too, should there be changes. Those are thoughts. I think we should at least consider it. The other one was on GD, GBF, and GBI, and I couldn't remember which of them it was. We did have a conversation about the CBI and making sure that it was a national. Can you or Chief Platt maybe speak to that? I just want to make sure that during this meeting, we share what we learned in our research since our policy committee.
You bet. And Chief Platt, I'd love to kick this to you because that question was, does the criminal history record information hold national data?
Yes. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Every single background check that we run is run by both databases, Colorado database and federal database. So that's CBI and FBI.
And then there was, I think, well, actually, I think we did have that discussion. Okay, directors, we will now have 5 minutes for open discussion. Anybody have any other questions or comments to add?
No, thank you.
Yes, that's it, we'll move on. Thank you so much. Thank you. The next business in order is board updates and appreciations. We will begin with Director Taylor.
I would just like to say thank you for the IBB committee today who met, spent, what was that, 8 hours discussing, having important conversations, difficult conversations. I appreciated how the group was able to come from a place of respect and how at the same time there was a lot of ownership taken, and want to thank you, Dr. Cole, for the ownership that you've taken in our financial burden that we're looking at right now and being transparent about the state that we're in and how we've gotten here. And I also want to just say thank you to the IDB, because in addition to the time that they spent today, we're asking now next week for them to have a couple of different days where they're coming back for a couple hours at a time. And in addition to that, all the time for IDB discussions that really didn't get to happen for what was scheduled in the agenda for what IDB was wanting to cover, and which will now need to happen at a later time. So that's just a lot of extra legwork on top of their already busy days. So I appreciate all the time that was spent to do sub-plans, arrange family plans, to be able to be here today.
Updates, I remotely on the phone met with the Labor Relations Committee last week. I appreciated the flexibility there, just to listen into some of the planning that went into communicating these difficult topics around health insurance. And I know that they had some priorities which they tabled for the moment so we could address this in a cohesive manner going forward. And then I just wanted to offer an appreciation for Director Ramirez. The last few months of just working so hard through your leadership, showing the best parts of our district to so many stakeholders and elected representatives, and for your consistent thoroughness on policy committee and the thoughtfulness that we all benefit from. So I appreciate that.
Okay, board update. On September 15th, I was really lucky to have the opportunity to be in a conversation, an intimate conversation with the, oh gosh, I'm gonna get this wrong, U.S. Forest Service and USDA representative for Washington, or for our nation, I guess, from Washington. And I was really appreciative of Wilderness Workshop, the city of Puebla, Colorado Parks and Colorado Parks and Wildlife, for the invitation. I think it was an incredible opportunity to talk about the benefit that we receive as a school district for all of the services in getting kids outdoors. And for our conversation today in the work session, I think the outdoors conversation is hot and heavy right now, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with some of these partners that are really diligent in trying to find programming and ways to get our kids outside. And I think the more that we are able to get all of our schools outdoor education and have experiences, whether it's rafting or hiking or biking or even skiing, like I just so appreciate all of the partners and all of the nonprofits and the funds that make it possible for our kids to be outside and be in the outdoors. We also had a staff housing master plan interview session, and I appreciate that Chief Balfoff made an effort to make sure that we had board representation there. it went really well. It looks like we hired someone, or in the conversation of hiring someone, and I appreciated the opportunity to make sure that we as a board have representation in that conversation, because it is the master plan for housing for our future, for the future of the district. We also had our ribbon cutting, which was so great, and so appreciative of the opportunity to be there with Director After, to be able to see our project at completion. And that, like, the picture came up too of the groundbreaking and just so much work that's been done thus far. Thank you to our team. Thank you to FCI. Thank you to everyone who's worked on it. I'm like going through my calendar for all the things. I just remember that Friday the 13th, we had the governor here, which is really awesome to be able to have him visit Meadowood, and to have him see all the work that we've put in to make sure that our staff have housing and that we are able to show that we're being proactive to the issue that all of our staff face. So thank you to the governor and his team for making it possible for him to stop by. And thank you to Chief Ciccone and Superintendent Cole for being thoughtful, being intentional, making sure that our finances as a school district are transparent, that we're being very clear as soon as we see a problem, being able to bring it forward to try to find solutions to it. It's something that I think this board treasures. We really appreciate the opportunity to be direct, to have clarity, to have solutions, and to work together. And we hope that we have a solution to that, in the coming months. But I appreciated the team's diligence, and I cannot echo that ever enough because it does mean a lot. And then I guess I'll just say thank you to Director Kuhlenberg, who's not here tonight because her baby has a birthday, but I kind of like, sometimes when she's out or she's traveling, I step in a little for her, and I'm never not surprised by the amount of work board chair takes on. And I think that is something that few people know how to do and do it well, and Director Kuhlenberg has been such a core leader for all of us in the district, both supportive and coaching and helping, and I really appreciate the opportunity to work alongside her. Okay, any other updates from the team?
I would just like to reiterate, we talked today with the education foundations, and they were talking about, first of all, they came and that was a great presentation that we got to see what they're doing and great things for our community. So thank you to all three education foundations, and the fourth one that is our own district one, but for all the work they do in each of our communities. And as you were talking about the outdoor education, I got a chance to go on the 6th grade outdoor education trip with Carbondale Middle School. And it really is an amazing education for everybody involved. And lots of times it might be asked like, well, what do you do? And what is it that's learned from it? You're losing the classroom time, but the insights that are obtained with 3 days of that intense conversations and interactions and executive skills that are shown or not shown during that time, that just gives so much insight to the teacher that is super important for the rest of the year. And the relationships that are built is just a very foundational aspect. And I wanted to say thank you. Do you, Desmond Ramirez, for covering, I can't think of the right word to use in front of Ramirez, director. For covering while I was gone for both the interviews with our housing and for being at the ribbon cutting ceremony. So I missed those two, but so thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo just from the board. Thank you to the foundations, like Director Tyler said, it was really a great opportunity to meet with them today and to sit down and talk about what we're all doing and how we can all continue to work together and collaborate as we center students and student achievement and success and teachers in the classroom. So thank you. to the foundations for all their work for our schools and for the time they took today to meet with us. Okay. Let's see. If there is no further business, and if there is no objection, the meeting will be adjourned. It is 8:00.